Good evening. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Dr. Thomason, roll call.
President Reese, please let the record show that we have all 5 board members present tonight.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and do our moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Right. I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions or comments regarding the agenda?
I can comment here, right?
Regarding the agenda?
Oh, no. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. All right. We're going to go on to consent. I move that we approve consent agenda items 3.2 through 3.7.
Second.
Questions or comments regarding consent?
Item 3.7, I was actually at the garden when we built it, and I just want to say what a great job Bashis, Dole, and Captain Planet did. They did an excellent job in making sure that those gardens were built really appropriately and made it a great adventure for the kids at HTA.
Perfect. Thank you.
Madam President.
Mr. Glover?
Thank you. I also wanted to thank, it looks like Food City and Dole and Captain Planet for the HTA garden, their donations. And then for Dr. Schillenberg, I know that Gateway Points has added what looked like a really good trip for their staff. And I know that sometimes staff goes to things and I would love for them to be able to share back with others. And so if you could just respectfully ask them to share if they could and find some PD time to share with others the good things I know that they're going to learn at this conference.
That is part of our expectation, so they do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. I noticed it looks like an amazing trip, and I'm just like, how can we make sure we capture that information and get that sent out and shared with peers? So it looks like a very good conference. Anything else? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. We're going to go on to our action and information items. 4.1. I move that we approve the adoption of the amendment of GCBA professional staff salary schedules.
Second. Oh,
Does anyone have any questions? I think it was pretty clear.
Just a comment, Madam President, as always. Sorry. This is, just for those who don't know, this is giving 8 years of credit for people who want to come to Higley, and we want them to come to Higley. So I appreciate you guys doing that. We have talked about expanding it, and I know it's a budgetary item, but I think it's a great thing to do, and I thank the Cabinet for their work in bringing that forward, and hopefully we'll capture some great teachers, too. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. Also, too, we need to be mindful of the cliff that's coming for teacher retention after 2023. We do know that the 20 by 2020 is a great thing for teachers, but we do know that after those raises come through, we'll have a cliff of about 30 to 40% of the teachers across the state of Arizona retiring at that time after they've completed their 3 years at a 20% raise. We would also be looking forward to, in the future, probably a couple years out, to raising it from 8 to 10%, or from 8 years to 10 years.
I do have a question in reference to the teachers on that contract as far as the 8 years. How far are we going back? And I guess my question is in reference to new teachers, if we're going to be giving credit for 8 years, if I was a new teacher last year and I got credit for 6 years, if I left the district and came back, and then you would give me credit for 8 years. So how are we addressing some of those concerns?
At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Martins, Executive Director of Human Resources.
Good evening, Board. That's a very good question, Mr. Witovich. And we had a very healthy conversation and meet and confer with our Higley Education Association related to this. And in summary, we're hitting the right time to do this expansion. And as Dr. Thomason said, in a couple of years, look out to expand it to 10 because of the 20% by 2020. A number of our current employees, with those increases in percentage, the compounding is going to put them far surpass to where that credit of service for the new people, they're not going to pass them. And that goes to some other challenges that Dr. Thomason has mentioned in the past in relation to whether or not teachers are going to leave other districts and come, or if they'll stay because of, for lack of a better word, a pigeonhole that they might be put in as a result. But we have to look big picture and take advantage of this in many ways, because we'll also have to look at some other things as we talk more about salaries and shifting. Last year we shifted our base and we moved it up $2,000. That's another thing that we might have to consider as this 20 by 2020 plan comes to a close too. Are we going to have to reevaluate that? Will we have to reevaluate other certificated base salaries? So there's lots of things that'll impact it in that bigger picture, but in terms of equity, for lack of a better word, for our existing and our new, because of the compounded interests with the salaries, it becomes a non-issue, for lack of a better word.
Ms. Martins, but I think what Mr. Witovich is asking, let's say that a teacher left Higley 4 years ago and they realized they really want to come back. They had 4 years experience and they left for 4 years, they could get an 8-year
Correct.
terms of service. I think that's what he was asking.
Correct. We just don't have, we don't have any continuation of service, which it's typically common. So if there was any compounded interest when they left based on salaries, they would not come back at that same salary rate. They would come back as a fresh new individual, and the formula calculation would be based on that. So correct the 8 years, but it's quite possible that it may not match the salary in which they had left because of the compounded salary increases over the years.
Also, I think for clarification, the way I understood your question was, we hired a teacher last year. They had 9 years of service. We only credited 5. And now a new teacher gets hired next year, they're going to get 8 years if they have 8 years of teaching. The way I understood your question was, are we going back and looking at current employees who would have qualified for the 8 years of service, but because we had the 5-year cap, I read it as new employees coming in, but that's the way I understood Mr. Witovich's question, is now that we've raised the amount of service, anyone who has been hired in the last 3 years that have been capped at 5, are we looking at anything there?
No, and that goes back to my prior answer. Because of the compounded interest of the salaries that we've had through Governor Ducey and some other components, it's not that we don't need to, but we did pull a random sample of teachers to make sure that these new entering individuals wouldn't jump, and they are not going to jump. And so the consensus was that this is moving forward to attract people to come to our district.
And Ms. Martins, I'll help you out a little bit too. I think it's also good to remember that last year, through the work of the superintendency and the cabinet and the school board, the average teacher's salary in Higley went up by 13%, not 10% too. So we're working hard trying.
Yes, no, I completely agree. And I appreciate all the work everyone has done and looked into it. we wanted to offer more years of service upon hiring. We want to recognize their experience. So I appreciate the work of getting this new, or this updated policy. Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. We'll go on to 4.2. I move that we approve the 2019-2020 certified contracts for teachers, certified non-teaching psychologist, occupational therapist, and speech therapist.
Second.
I did have one question here, Ms. Martins. I did notice on the contracts, it says that at the bottom they have an option A and an option C, but there's no option B?
That's intentional.
Okay.
So
Please.
what happened was last year, you may or may not recall, the state legislation changed in terms of the time frame in which we had to pay our employees. They had to be paid within 10 days of the work. And so prior to that last year's contract, we had A, B, and C, not to confuse employees even more by, instead of rearranging it and calling option C B, we decided to remove the B and keep the A and the C, so they knew the differences and not accidentally say, I always choose this letter, so I'm going to take this letter.
Perfect, thank you. I was like, wait, did we miss something? So perfect, thank you. And then I did have one other question on the contracts. It does specifically indicate these are contracts for 186 days. Where do we have time expectations? I know I've seen them, but I'm not sure where they are.
So that I understand correctly, are you talking about the contract day? So there is, if I remember correctly, and I'm going to also rely on my fellow cabinet and colleagues, I believe that it's listed in policy in regards to a half hour before and a half hour after the school day.
Gotcha. I knew we've talked about it. I knew I've seen it, and I wanted to just clarify where that was. Perfect. Thank you. I was in the same boat with you. I'm like, I know it's there somewhere. Somewhere. Any questions regarding 4.2?
President Reese?
Mr. Glover?
I'm sorry, the audience, this is an annual rite of passage every spring that I do this. But in the contract, it does say between April 1st and April 30th, there's a $750 fine. May 1st to June 30th is a $1,500 fine, and after July 1st, $2,000 fine. So I don't like that. I wish it wasn't in there. So in a moment, I'm going to make a motion. I don't think the motion would pass if I asked to get rid of it. So let me just tell you what I'm going to propose, and we can discuss. I'm going to propose amending the language to charging $1 between April 1st and April 30th, $500 for the second period, and $1,000 after July 1st, because that is more difficult. I fully expect to lose, but maybe I'll swing one more of you over to my side. But the reason why is some districts are actually starting to get rid of this because it seems more punitive and sends a little bit more of a harsh message to teachers. And I do understand why admins like it. I definitely understand why principals like it. It gives them certainty, but is it much more certainty than we had before? I'm not sure. I think we're still better off focusing our efforts as we have on improving the work environment so that people don't want to leave, which I think is what is starting to happen here, and I'm happy about that. And I'm not really sure how much we've actually collected anyway. I always and will always vote to waive the fee because what you usually have are really difficult circumstances a lot of times for people. So they're already struggling with, you know, maybe a family member that's ill, a move, something, and we are now burdening them to have to think about and consider this large fine at a time when a really high proportion of Americans at the end of a month don't even have $400 in the bank. So I would love to see it removed, but in light of that, to reduce the amounts. But I welcome discussion, and I thank you guys for humoring me for the third year in a row.
Have we ever not approved one that has come before us?
Not that's gotten to the board. HR reviews them to see if it qualifies for a waiver, and then HR makes that recommendation. Ms. Martins, I don't know what has not come to us.
Correct. So the way that it goes, because it's in contract, if we do assess the penalties, it does not come to the board. Only the waivers come to the board. I think I briefly touched upon this last school year, that, you know, when it truly is an undue hardship or it falls within the category of a promotion, a personal illness or an illness of a family member, something out of their control, a partner moving out of state, we do waive, and they come here and you do waive them. I can think of, at this point in my 1.5 tenure with the district, I can think of 4, maybe 5 incidents in which we did charge the penalty. And some of those were individuals who just said this was no longer the career for them, and they didn't want to stick it out any longer. Some who had left mid-year, some who had left prior to mid-year. And although I find that admirable to acknowledge the fact that this is no longer the career for them, when they opt to leave, one example comes to mind where they left in October, November, that really does put the site at a hardship. And sometimes with the dollar amount, what I've seen is people really think long and hard about that, versus without the dollar amount, those decisions, for some, not for all, might come a little easier. This has been another healthy conversation that I've had with members of the Higley Education Association. And just like you, Mr. Glover, there's some individuals within the group who are a proponent of lessening the dollar amount and or not having it. But interestingly enough, and it's actually a group more of certified employees than it is administrators, by just one, but it is a little bit larger. The majority of the certified employees within the group are proponent of it because they've seen how it's impacted their site, and the difficulty has been as a result. But I will say, you know, I think in a 1.5 years to only have a handful is a pretty good number.
And I think it does make them think long and hard before they sign this contract, that we are giving them a piece of penalty, especially to those other staff members. We're honoring those other staff members with having a penalty because they are having to put in extra labor. Like Ms. Martin said, that if that person were to leave mid-year, those staff members are having to pick up some slack to help with a sub and other incidentals, correct, Dr. Thomason? That happens?
That is correct. Sometimes other staff members do pick up the work that when a teacher is gone, we could split classes, or sometimes we don't find subs to cover all of our classes.
And so, Madam President, in my proposal, April 1st to April 30th, before next school year, would be $1. May and June 30th, before school has started, would be $500. And then after July 1st, which is a bigger burden, I acknowledge, would be $1,000. And that is less than the current $750, $1,500, and $2,000. That is all. Oh, so now I have to make if discussion is done, I'm going to propose an amendment to the language. Anybody else? Any comments? No? Okay, well then I make a motion that we amend the language to be $1 between April 1st and 30th, $500 between May and June 30th, and $1,000 after July 1st.
Is there a second? Sorry, Mr. Glover.
It happens every year. Someday I'll win.
All right, so we are still with our initial motion of approving the contracts as they are presented. Any other comments?
I guess I have a real quick question. This might be for Mrs. Martins or Dr. Thomason. I see that we have teachers, certified psychologists, occupational therapists, and these are all contracted employees within our district. But we never see contracts come up to us for coaching. Where do coaches fall when it comes to contracts, and do we ever see them?
So the way that we operate in terms of our employee groups here in the district, coaches receive supplementals and they're not contracts. So because they're not, for lack of a better word, true positions and they're supplementals, they just go through the district and the HR process and the site, and the board does not see them other than if they are, when they are hired. Actually, I take that back. The board doesn't see them individually as contracts. You see them on the agenda as hires and the supplementals that are associated with the hires.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
Well, I will just add, I'm not going to be bitter, and I'm not going to hold up people's contracts, so I will vote in favor of it, and I thank you
Well,
guys
we're
for
not there yet. This is just the contract language.
the language. I'm not going to hold up without the
Right.
language.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That. All right, so now we'll go on to 4.3. I move that we approve the issuance of non-administrative certified contracts with the increases that are listed to the base salary for 2019-2020 school year.
Support.
Questions or comments?
All right, I'm sorry, Madam President.
Mr. Glover?
I'm just happy to see that the counselors, the coaches, the preschool, and the teachers are all getting their 5%, and I know that was some extra work. So I thank everybody for looking into that and making that so.
Any other questions or comments? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries 5-0. All right, we will now go on to our work study for our IT curriculum update.
President Reese, members of the board, at this time I would like to welcome to the podium Ms. Valerie Thomas, who has worked hard on this project. So Valerie, you want to come up and give us an introduction and get us kicked off so we can see all the exciting things we have going on in the back.
President Reese, members of the board, thank you for being here. We originally had a video for you, and I believe that was submitted to you in your board packet. And in that video, the teachers and I created that video. We put it together, we filmed it, we edited it for you. And we really want to be creative in how we delivered some information to you. We know it's not all the information, and we know there's going to be some conversations later, but we really wanted to bring the classroom, the students, the teachers to you tonight, and we knew we couldn't physically do that in this room, so we tried to do that using technology. So we wanted to create the video for you. So we know you've already viewed it, and we're not going to replay that tonight because it is rather long, but we wanted you to have all of that information, and we thought it was all important for you. So I do apologize for it being extremely long, but we thought it was important, and we made it just for you. We didn't make it for others. We want others to see it, yes, but initially it was created for your information. But the second part of our presentation is behind this wall. I know you've heard them come and go and hear them back there, but we just want to give you, again, the video is a small glimpse. We couldn't cover everything in our curriculum, but we wanted to give you a small glimpse. And then tonight, we wanted to give you a hands-on feel, just something that you don't normally do in your work studies and your board. So we wanted to do something different for you. We wanted to make it special. So we'll have you come down, and we have students and parents and teachers back there, and they want to show you some of the things that we're currently doing and some that we want to start doing. Okay?
President Reese, members of the board, I hope you enjoyed just a little glimpse of what we're doing at some of our schools for innovation and technology and those type of things. But at this time, I also wanted to open it up to the board for questions, and so you guys can ask any questions. We do have our educational leaders here. We do have teachers, administrators, students, and staff here that hopefully can answer your questions in regards to informational or IT in the classroom and before school, after school, and all the exciting programs we got. I would want to mention this specifically, though. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Higley Unified School District is one of the leaders in the nation in regards to creating our own virtual reality videos. And so we're able to do that and put those online and utilize those in the classroom too. Right now, the applications, as Randy reminds me, is that we need to continue to work to improve them for the educational setting, but I think it's the first step in what we see for the future.
Thank you. And I want to take a moment and thank all the kids and the parents and the teachers and everyone who's here. Those kids were amazing. They were so excited to share what they know. When we would go to a station, they were just like, here it goes. And they knew what they were talking about. They knew how to explain it. I loved it. They said, we didn't even get to touch these until we had these lessons. Once we got the lessons, then we got to do the fun stuff. And so everything that was back there that we saw was amazing. And thank you for setting that up. Thank you for the parents and the kids taking their time to come share. It was absolutely amazing, so thank you.
I want to recognize Valerie Thomas. She worked really, really hard. Not only on that video, but with all these teachers, parents, and kids. And so I think it was a unique way to experience all the great things we have going on.
Thank you for sure.
I wanted to follow up with that I enjoyed the video and seeing the different pieces that we had at district in different segments, because I wasn't aware of all the different things that we do have. And I do think it gives other teachers some ideas on what they could be implementing if they're not already. So I thought it was a great video.
Yes, and thank you for taking the time. The video was very informative. It was nice to see the different clubs and the different CTEs and what they're doing and what we have as choices and options that are available to our kids. So it was I know it took a long time to do. And yes, it was a long video, but I know how much even longer that takes to do. So thank you for your time and effort to everyone who worked on that.
I wanted to thank all the media specialists that did come tonight, and thank you because I do know that your jobs have changed a lot in the last 4 years since we've had no media specialists and just an aide in our libraries and then bringing back media specialists and as a part-time. And I just thank all of you because I know your jobs are not easy, and the fact that we keep changing them probably makes it even harder. And I know technology keeps changing, and you guys have to be on your A game, and I just really appreciate all of you and all the hard work you're putting into our district because it shows through those kids in there and the smiles on their face. So thank you.
And I just would like to echo that. And I watched the whole video on Saturday, start to finish. And I love that we're living out the words that we said, trying to offer as many opportunities as we can for as many kids as we can. And it costs time and money and training and all of that stuff, but you can see there's a deliberate effort to do that. And I was struck by the diversity of teachers that we had and the skills that they had and just their dedication, their intelligence, and how lucky we are to have people like that who are willing to forego lucrative careers elsewhere to be able to inspire kids and give them a gift that they can then make their own career out of. It's humbling, and I'm proud to be among you and be a teacher and have what little role I have here in Higley.
Thank you, Mr. Glover, for those comments, and I would take that a step further. A lot of these teachers, a lot of these educators we have, parents and individual communities are putting in their own time and effort and money into establishing. They're getting training outside the educational system. We would love to be able to afford all programs at all schools for every child, but we know with the educational money that we receive from the state of Arizona, we just don't have the funds for that. And so our communities and our teachers have really stepped up big within the Higley Unified School District to provide opportunities that we couldn't without their help and support.
Thank you. Now, I do have a couple questions. I know from watching the video that one of the highlights was Skype Classroom. And so one of my questions was, do all of our teachers know about Skype Classrooms? Are they all trained on it? How many in our district use it? How do they know how to use it? How do they know when to use it?
I guess, can I just go along with that question? Because as I watched the videos the other day, and I was just, we're doing wonderful things I just saw in there. And my concern as a board member is that this program is based on how lucky we are. We have teachers sporadically throughout our district in reference to bringing these programs. And be it coding or different things like that, I guess some of the questions we could take a look at is like, who's teaching the teachers? And as I ask teachers in this community, they don't answer. They don't have an answer for me who to go to, particularly at our secondary level, along with the board members. Who do the secondary teachers go to? I did see on the video engineering programs and things like that, but I did not see any other programming at our secondary level in reference to how to do research, how to prepare programming, anything that's connected with technology. I did not see that in the presentation. It was basically aimed at engineering, and so that's my group at the school. I want across, because I'll tell you, when they're coming to college, they don't know how to research. They don't know how to do these things using technology. There is nobody in our secondary program that's training the teachers in reference to that. So I guess if somebody could answer those particular questions, we've got these wonderful programs out here. Who's coming back and sharing that information with our teachers?
President Reese, members of the board, first I'd like to address the Skype question, because that is a very exciting time for our district at this time, and Ms. Thomas is really putting some things together for that. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Thomas at this time to answer the question in regards to training on Skype and where we're going with that.
Okay. So I can answer your question about Skype. We have, Skype is part of our Microsoft 365 platform, and Microsoft 365, this is our first full year having it. So we're still, I'm the trainer, I'm where they're getting that information from, is I'm still training teachers. We have some teachers that are way further ahead than other teachers using Microsoft 365, and there's so many different pieces to it. It's not just Teams and OneNote and Stream, and then you've got other pieces, and Mystery Skype is part of that as well, because it's part of Microsoft. So we have, to answer your question, we have a handful of teachers at several sites that are using Microsoft 365 Mystery Skype. And this is something that I am currently in the works of creating a professional development video, because I know I'm one person and we have a large district and I know I can't get everywhere. So this is something that I'm currently creating a video. I should have it done within the next week or so, now that I'm done with the video for you guys. So it is something that we are pushing out, because I'm starting to have teachers ask me questions like, hey, I hear we have this Microsoft, thing with Skype, and oh yeah, we do. That's part of our platform. And so I can tell when I hear the buzz out there, I know that they're beginning to be ready for it, if that makes sense. So I'm going out there, they're finding me, I'm going out there to those people who are specifically wanting it right now. And I think what's going to happen, or what I see it happening, is when they start seeing their teammates use it, oh, what are you doing? Oh, that's great. And they're going to start asking questions. Because, again, I'm only one person, so I'm hoping it's going to start spreading, like wildfire.
To kind of follow up, thank you,
Yeah.
and somewhat incorporate Mr. Ratovich's question. We're doing an update on our technology curriculum. So in our packet, we received curriculum maps and things like that. I have no idea how to read a curriculum map. There's bolded items. I have no idea what that means. So what is our technology curriculum? I know you're K-6. So what is our technology curriculum K-6? Who assesses it? How do we know that these kids are becoming proficient? How do we know when we need to move on? How do we know when we come back? I see the standards here, but what is the curriculum that we're teaching? What is the expectation?
So those documents that were submitted to you, that is our curriculum maps, that is K-6, and they're based off the national ISTE standards, and they are by grade level and by quarter. The bolded items are the focus skills. There's a lot in those maps, and our teachers, our media specialists, they work hard, and to get everything on those maps is impossible. And it's not mandated from the state, so we go to those bolded pieces because we feel those are the important ones in order to move on, for them to move on. So we created those ISTE standards, or we took the ISTE standards and we created those curriculum maps from the ISTE standards, and we did that the quarter before the media specialists were hired back on full-time. So we got together as a group and we put those together. And then you said, as far as how do we assess that?
Well, so we have the curriculum map, you said, and again, we're talking K-6, and you said the bolded areas are their focus per quarter.
Yep.
Are there specific lessons? How do the media specialists know what to teach, how to teach, to ensure that we're meeting those focus areas? ELA, we have, HMH that helps guide us along. In our math, we have McGraw-Hill. With our technology, what is guiding them? How are we helping them? How do they know what to teach?
This time last year, we purchased learning.com, and it's based off the ISTE standards as well, and it's a digital literacy curriculum, and our media specialists use learning.com. Do they use it every day? No, but that is their main source of curriculum, so it is based off the ISTE standards. I don't know if you went by Dan Brahoni's station. He had learning.com up. There's, I don't know if he showed you where it actually will take the grades and record it. There's rubrics in there that the teachers can use. You can see where they're at as far as what they completed. They turn it in virtually to him. I'm thinking, what else am I missing? But, yeah, okay.
President Reese, members of the board too, I would like to also just refresh your memories on, we did make our media specialist teachers, and that was for several reasons. They do give grades, so every student in the school does receive a grade on the technology and media center portion of the report card. But also too, it gives our teachers an opportunity to earn some of those 301 funds and to be a real teacher in the classroom and have the same standards and requirements as all of the rest of the teachers on the campus.
So then, just so I understand, so we're using the learning.com, and that's what we're doing our assessments on to make sure they're getting, because I saw it was great. It was like how nice and easy, and he explained how he can change percentages and numbers and things like that for our lower grades, and we do letter grades for 6th grade. And so that's where we're doing our assessing from, then, is learning.com through.
That and just assessment as the teachers walk around the classrooms as well. You have to keep in mind that they're seeing these students at the most 9 times per quarter, so because they only see them once a week. And in a perfect world, they are seeing them 9 times, but there are times when they don't see them because of a holiday and they've missed that week, or there's been a booster-thon fun run thing going on. So
our media specialists, our media specialists are seeing the students 40 minutes?
they are seeing them, well, it's a 45-minute class period.
Okay.
And for 30 minutes, they are getting a technology lesson. For the other 15 minutes, it's library, it's checkout, and the media center.
And these are sometimes kindergartners, so there's probably like a good 15 minutes of corral time and trying to log on to,
Well,
let's just put it out there, like, I can't even imagine. So you're corralling these kids, trying to get them to log onto the computer.
well, at the beginning of the year, and I really have to praise our kindergartners, because last year it was at first, the beginning of the year, it was like herding cats.
Exactly.
Those
Like,
poor kids.
I had one kindergartner at one point. I don't imagine 30 or 25, whatever our standard is. So to corral them, to get them to log onto a computer, I
Yes.
can imagine is probably the whole lesson.
Yes, it was difficult. So usually at the beginning of the year with kindergartners, the media specialist will do a lot more of the library portion, and then as they become familiar with the library and just school it itself, then they start taking them back into the lab and getting them used to, this is a computer. And if they come from preschool, it's not a touch. In preschool, it's touchscreen, but here in kindergarten, it's not a touchscreen. You have to
Right.
show them how to use a mouse, and that's something they're also learning in preschool. Is at the end, as they are learning that, but not all of them come from preschool,
Right, from our
obviously.
preschools, of
From
course.
our preschools,
Of
yeah.
course.
So, at the beginning of the year, yes. And then, but I tell you, this year, oh my goodness, just seeing the change from even our first graders this year, whereas last year was our first year with the program, they had a hard time logging in. Our media specialist took so much time trying to get them just to log in, and then showing them what a tab and a window and all of that is. This year, they came in knowing that, and it was just night and day for them. So starting them early in kindergarten, it has been great. And I know that we have several of our media specialists that by December, they've got all the kindergartners knowing how to log into a computer using their first name, last name, and then that password.
Which is
that's
amazing,
the
honestly.
password that
Good job, guys.
that needs numbers and
Some of their
periods and
last
capitals.
names, I don't know that I could spell.
Yeah.
So good job to all the media specialists in the room.
I just wanted to add one thing,
Oh.
too. When we started having this problem, we talked to IT, and Robert was able to help us come up with a program where we can auto-launch the labs. So when the kids come in, they're all on to a certain level. So then they could go to Destiny or wherever we're going. So that's been a really helpful program as well.
So
It's helped with that
Okay.
piece with
So
all
we're
the kids logging
expecting
in.
our media specialists, I just want to wrap my brain around this, in a 40-minute time frame to do a lesson with some sort of book, probably, right? Because they're in the library. Not necessarily. Okay. How many media specialists do I have in the room? Do I have all 9 of the elementary? Okay. So we're expecting them to possibly read a book, check out from the library, and do a lesson on the computer. That's a lot for 40 minutes.
For the kindergartners, at least at my site, and I believe this is
Is it different at
well,
every site?
It's a generalization. Every site has its own tweak to it,
Okay.
depending upon the students and the personnel available. On my site, the kindergartners will get a story time, some type of listening comprehension lesson, book checkout time, and then during that book checkout time, at least on my campus, with the assistance of the media specialist aide, she will help facilitate and make sure that all the students get books checked out and so on and so forth. law of first quarter, of course, is the herding cats, as Valerie pointed out, and how to treat the books and how to treat the computers. And computer mouse is not for eating, it's not for throwing across the room, it's not for hitting your friend with. And then using what we had, either the learning.com or, as she pointed out, the auto login functions, then we try to get, about 20 to 30-minute lesson.
I just have to say, you guys are doing an amazing job. If you're getting them to do that in a 20-minute lesson period and getting a book in and getting checkout in 40 minutes, it is like herding cats.
It's
I have
very
seen
slow
them,
steps.
and
They're wonderful
I have
cats,
to just
by the
say,
way.
all of you, like, you deserve a lot more than we can ever pay you, obviously, but that is by far amazing. And I think we're expecting a lot from them, and I think you guys are rising to the challenge, and I really appreciate all you do.
I know
Mrs.
some
Wilson,
of
I
them.
would also like to equate that to some of the other classes we have too. In art, the kids have to know to come in, to get their supplies, to sit down and get it, and then at the end of the class, they have to clean up. Same with some of our orchestra and band classes. They have to come in, they have to warm up their instruments, they have to get their stuff ready, they have to know where to sit, they know what play music they have for that day in that aspect. So the kids are pretty well trained in a lot of the special areas to know exactly what they're doing. It does take a little while. You're right, at the beginning of the year, for not just the technology piece, but for the art piece and for,
I think all specials
and the
probably
music. Yes.
are dealing with this, and they're seeing the entire school. They're not just seeing their 30 faces. They know all the teacher, or the teacher does know all those students at that school level.
And so for some of those teachers, that's 1,000 grades.
1,000, which is amazing. Just to round out that question, you brought up another question I had. Do all the media specialists see even those band students? Do they get that time with the band students, the orchestra students? Because I do know that's a special, and sometimes that trumps that, so I wasn't sure how that works.
So if they attend band and orchestra, they do miss a little bit of technology, art, PE, all of the specials. Now, depending on, it depends on whether the the band teacher, if they want to pull woodwinds for the whole quarter, then they're going to miss that whole quarter. If they want to pull them for that week and then pull a different group for the next week. So yeah, they're missing.
How do we grade on that then?
How do
Because
we
you said that that's a graded item. That media is a graded item. Do they just not get a grade there? They just get a band item. They don't get a media.
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure that I'm aware, because if that media specialist is supposed to be grading them, that obviously can't happen if you don't see the student.
I think too, Mrs. Wilson, every school has a little bit of a swing on that when it comes to how they do their specials, how they do their PLC time. It all depends on the individual elementary school on how they do that. So it's a kind of a big, broad question that each person's going to have a separate little answer for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And,
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. President Reese, members of the board, I also wanted to address Mr. Wojtowicz's question in regards to research. So research is embedded in technology curriculum at the elementary school too, but also within the language arts classroom, they do a lot of the research and that training in that class. In the language arts class, those language arts teachers do have computers on wheels, or cows, that we put in their classrooms, and our goal is to have cows for every one of our teachers that teaches language arts. And so a lot of those research assessment type of opportunities do happen in the language arts classroom, especially at the middle school and the high school. In the middle school and high school, we have this year provided computers on wheels for every one of our language arts classes. And so we are very rich in our technology for our language arts classes.
I understand that we have the technology. My question was earlier, who is teaching them? I see teachers in the schools, they're coming up with ideas, but they don't have anybody to go to use the equipment at our secondary level. I guess somebody, that's where I'm just confused.
Is that
at.
Mrs. Thomas? Or are you just K6?
She's elementary.
Are you just K6? Okay.
So she's K6, so that's my question.
That would be a question directed at me, correct, Mr. Wojtowicz? I guess I'm a little confused on the question.
My question is, we have technology equipment in our secondary schools. The teachers have software. There's new programming all the time and, taking place. Who do the teachers go to learn about so they can bring the curriculum, technology curriculum back to the students? Who's teaching our secondary teachers in reference to technology?
Well, in the last 2 years, when we brought on an adoption, it included a technology piece, and that was trained by the publisher. The publisher did come in and train our secondary teachers. Are you talking about, because you did mention research.
I'm talking, I understand we may brought new curriculum. I'm talking across the board. If a teacher in chemistry wants some new software or a new program, she has some questions, who do they go to in our secondary school system here to learn to help them?
Can I give an example, perhaps? So how Mrs. Thomas said that she's creating videos about the 365 mystery Skype so that the elementary teachers can go and I'm just pointing elementary, but can go on and they can watch a training video that was created. If I understand Mr. Ritovich correctly, who's doing that for high school? If there's something out there like the Skype, who's telling as a whole, who's telling middle school and high school teachers, hey, there's this new program, there's this new technology out here, there's a new way that you can utilize Skype and go on a field trip. Who's handling that piece to bring the different innovations, not necessarily our adoptions, which we'll get to in a minute, but who's creating the training and the different opportunities for the middle school and high school as it regards to technology?
So I assume this question is directed at when are we going to hire the online coordinator?
For the new board members, we allocated this 2 years ago. This is the second year, and my question is this evening, and so I hear no response. So how are our secondary teachers getting the information, and how are our students getting information? And I hear no response.
Well, I was gonna give you one. We weren't prepared to hire the person before this year, and when it was posted and I pulled apps, we had like 16 applicants, and I've heard you speak a number of times. We were looking for somebody with an educational technology master's degree, and we had one applicant in the pool. So after talking with Ms. Martins, we did post nationally. We're screening on Friday, and as of today, we have 5 people in the pool that have educational master's degrees. We have like 8 that are either teaching in an online program or have been in an online school, and we have 1 person has a degree in media technology, so I'm not positive. So we're going to be hiring that position. But up until now, with the 2 new adoptions we've had on place and the specialties that work in the middle schools, we really haven't had a need for it. I mean, the active board training and all that, we've brought in the vendors to train our district staff in. As far as research and things like that, the teachers have been pretty able to do that in their classrooms. Our blended teachers, Matt Agnew leading that, and our blended teachers have had Canvas training on how to actually build the courses in Canvas and implement them. So 2 years ago, we trained all our secondary teachers on Canvas. Well, the last year, this current year, it's being used with our blended classes and teachers that wanted to use it. Next year, all our ELA and math teachers are going to do it thanks to having a cart in every classroom. There's really there's no way for them to use Canvas if the student doesn't have access to a computer in the classroom. So at that point, we felt it would be advantageous to bring the online coordinator in to support the new computer science standards and to also support the Canvas. So we have Microsoft 360 and we have Canvas at the secondary right now. Next year, we'll be bringing on the new computer science classes, embedding them. But secondary works a little different than elementary. It's specialized. For example, at our middle school, if you are in band or foreign language, you don't take a technology class. So this year, as those iPads drop off, we're going to be bringing down the computers. We will be implementing Canvas for all our 7th and 8th graders. And those teachers will be trained. And we've had a slow plan to train. So we trained all the all the secondary teachers, high school. This year we trained trainers at each school. We're sending 20 teachers, additional 5 from each school to the Mesa all-day Canvas training that's happening, I believe, in the end of April, beginning of May. And then we will be working with those teachers to provide more professional development as we move. But I don't know if there's the same want or need at the secondary as we do have at the elementary because of just the sheer specialization of the coursework and the standards that they have to teach.
Well, to follow up on that, sorry, Mr. Witovich, your statement of middle and high schools have electives, technology classes. My concern is that's not the only place technology needs to be taught, and that's not the only place that learning should occur. So what kind of technology, if I'm not interested in robots and I'm taking band, that doesn't mean I shouldn't have access to technology. It doesn't mean I shouldn't be learning different things. Maybe I'm not learning the specialized robotics, or maybe I'm not learning coding, but overall, I should be learning maybe through a blended class, maybe partially online, partially in class. And when I said the adoption with our math and our English language arts, would you be surprised if I told you in a high school English class, not once this year have they touched a computer in their class? In a high school English class?
Yeah, I would be surprised.
If I told you not once have they even heard of Alex in this huge curriculum that we purchased?
I can pull that data
That
and
they,
look at that.
in a high school math class, have never even heard of it? That in a high school math class have never even logged on to a computer? The computer cards are there, but have never logged into a computer this year.
Yeah, I would be surprised.
Okay. So, I think we need to look at how this is happening, because I can tell you, in plenty of high school English classes, they have never used a laptop this year and logged into a computer. I can tell you, in plenty of high school math classes, that they have never logged into a computer. They've never been told of any other math websites to go, and whether it's to learn a different way. Alex is part of our curriculum. We spent a lot of money, and my understanding is both of the curriculums we adopted had online technology components, and they're not being used. And so for Mr. Witovich, we're not using that online component in our middle schools. So just because I'm not in, and I think our robotics and coding, and I think those are all amazing, and I love that we have that many opportunities. I love we have engineering at our high schools, and if that's the direction a student wants to go, I love that we have those opportunities. And like Dr. Thomason's saying, we're continuing, but those are elective opportunities. Where we're missing the boat in our curriculum, in our technology curriculum, it's not the same as teaching at the K-6 on how to use the keyboard, how to navigate the internet. It's how are we using technology to enhance their learning? And when we're not using technology to enhance their learning, when these kids in high school aren't being shown, aren't given the information to go out and use what's available to them, their fingertips, the world is out there, but we're not sharing that with them. And that's when I think of technology curriculum, and when I think of it at the secondary, it's how are we using both? How are we using our textbooks? How are we using that? And then, how do we take that information and let the students take it one step further? You know, students don't learn the same way. Teachers have a teaching style, kids have a learning style. They should know how to go find, using math as an example, there's plenty of websites out there that kids could go watch a different way. And then, oh, that's what they're saying. Now I've got that. But we're not using that. We're not using Alex. We're not using our online portions of the curriculum that we spend a lot of money on.
Can I interject here?
I just want to back up what, I think we're a little confused in reference technology isn't robots and coding, okay? It's technology is complementing our instruction and a curriculum. When your students leave our school system, when they go to college, they're expected to know Canvas, they're expected to know how to research and all these things, how they do a PowerPoint spreadsheet, et cetera, et cetera. And if I hear what I just heard now, that they're not in an English class even touching a computer, so how are those students getting to college and being successful? They're going to be behind. You know, and you know, ASU, everybody's using Canvas now. So if we're not even giving them the basics here, and we have nobody at our secondary who's an advocate, you know, I've been waiting 2 years for somebody to be an advocate for secondary, and all I see is nothing but, you know, we can't find anybody. You know, I can find somebody across the field over here at instructional technology. I can make a phone call on that. You know, I mean, I just hear excuses. And the other thing I wanted to say is we've got wonderful teachers in this district, brilliant teachers. They could teach the teachers, okay? They could show them. We could give them extra money. They can show them all these things and resources. It's about being creative. If we can't find a person for this particular program, then let's be resourceful and look amongst our own and see what takes place, because I've been sitting here up on this board for 2 years, and every year we've asked the same question: who is the advocate for our secondary programming for technology? And it's silent. And now I'm hearing that the English teachers aren't using things, and you know what? It's so you can respond.
Dr. Thomason, can we see this in the superintendent's report? Can we get some sort of report on which teachers are using it, or maybe you guys can talk to those teachers? Because it sounds like there's some big deal here that we're not allowed to talk outside of this meeting.
Dr. Schillingberg's trying to respond.
Yeah, thank you. I think the thing to look at is I see technology kind of like I see reading. You know, in elementary school, students learn to read, and then they read to learn. In elementary school technology, I think they learn technology, and then once they get in secondary, it supports the content. And that's how it kind of fits in. Because we've adopted two curriculum, that's kind of been the focus. In secondary, we have very little time to do PD. So the PD time we've had has been really focused on the adoptions. This next year, we won't have an adoption, so we will have more time to focus a little bit on some of those technology things, especially with the new online coordinator coming on and the tech person. I find it impossible to believe that someone never uses a computer in a language arts class at the secondary. My assumption is going to be that they had them use it at home because they're all doing writing, and I think they're all expecting them to be typed, so they'd have to use it somehow. I think what we need to see is the curriculum we've adopted is the books and materials. The online is resources and some of the same things that they have hard copies of. So some teachers could decide, I'd rather use the hard copy parts of it and not the online parts of it. It also is not unusual in an adoption that the first year they don't use it because it's too overwhelming. The second year they'll start looking at that stuff. So we would expect to see more of that happening this year in language arts, next year in math. The Redbird and Alex is a supplement. It's not our curriculum. We did not pay for it. It was something I was able to negotiate with them, and we got for free. It is not part of the curriculum. It is a resource for students to use to learn some of the content. Some teachers have grabbed it and are using it, loving it. Some teachers haven't gotten there. We had so many problems with the technology at the start of the year. I was able to get the McGraw-Hill to give us all another year free, which is $250,000. we couldn't afford to pay $250,000 for those programs. So we're happy that we have another year for teachers to experiment with it, use it how they can, and then we'll look to see how it best fits us, who really needs it. I have been meeting with McGraw-Hill. I've had a couple meetings to look at usage and data, those kind of things. It's sporadic. You know, it's some use it a lot, some don't use it at all. We will get there, but like I said, the first year, they have to learn how to just use the books and the lesson plans that are there. All that stuff is taking all their time. The online part, again, the McGraw-Hill has digital materials. We have more of them looking at the digital resources for assessments because they get that data back quicker. But these are all steps we have to take to help them get comfortable with it and use it as they can. Because our goal is not to have kids use technology. Our goal is for kids to become proficient in language arts, proficient in mathematics, and the technology supports that. But if I had a teacher, let's say, example, who wasn't using Alex, then I would want to see their scores. Are the students doing well because they really have mastered the materials they have and they don't need that outside resource? That's a possibility.
And, go ahead. I was gonna say, and I think we're saying the same thing. I don't think online substitutes teaching. And that's not what I'm expecting. I expect Alex as an enhancement and something that they can go on and practice and do different things and everything. But we have these resources and they're not using them. And to Mr. Witovich's point is, at what point, and I get we've had adoptions and I get they're overwhelmed. I do. I'm not saying that. What I'm asking is at what point do we make this a priority? Because they're going to leave us, and if their teacher has not used any blended teaching methods, whether it's, and I agree, no, they've probably used computers at home in ELA, but that's not help supporting a blended learning because they'll use a computer at home and type an essay or anything. But when they go and they leave us, college classes, you can be in an in-person class and there's still so much of an online component. And when we've not prepared them by using any online components, because it's all book, it's all in classroom, then we're not preparing them for that type of environment. And so I guess my question is at what point do we make it a priority to get them up to speed, to help these teachers? I want to help them. I'm not saying throw more work on them. I'm not saying inundate them. I'm not saying anything. It's how do we help them? How do we assist them? Because during this transition time, our juniors and seniors, we're doing a disservice to them because we're not up to speed on it. So it's when do we make that a priority to prepare them for that type of environment? And that's kind of what I'm looking at. And with our math adoption, is Learn Smart part of the adoption? Is that part of what we have?
No.
Okay, so that's a separate piece of their curriculum. Okay.
President Reese, I think, first off, I want to again thank everybody. I thoroughly enjoyed the video and seeing what every school has. It made me sad sometimes too for some schools that what they don't have, like virtual clockles. But anyways, just amazing stuff out there. So I just want to make sure you all know my heart is we love our teachers, we love our staff, we love our admins, we love those people that work so hard to give us things that so beyond my mind. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But I was a little disappointed that in the video, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, I'm really not. There wasn't a science teacher, there wasn't an English teacher, there wasn't a math teacher. Like our core curriculum, technology, wasn't presented to us, and it's not in this. And I get that I got this great curriculum map that I can't read because I am not that type of person. So maybe we can do this again. I don't know, but I would love to hear from our core curriculum teachers as well. So I just want to see what they do in their classroom with technology and a book or whatever that looks like. I think it should have been included here. That's just kind of my heart on this situation tonight, and I just wanted to get that out there. 'Cause I
President
know
Reese,
you're
Mrs. Kaler,
Okay, go ahead.
I think that is an excellent idea. I'd like to bring in each of the coaches in the different disciplined areas and have them show you, because I know what's happening out there. I know our science curriculum coach is out there doing great things. I know our language arts curriculum coaches are out there doing phenomenal things. I did not believe that was within the scope of the technology piece that we offer tonight. My apologies for that. But I do believe that we can come through and give presentations from each of our curriculum coaches and make sure that they go over the scope and sequence of what's required through the state of Arizona, and also bring in those technology parts they're doing. I know it's happening out there in different areas. I also do know there are some incredible teachers that have gone above and beyond what the scope and sequence is and the standards for their area, and they're bringing in technology in their classrooms on that. And those are the teacher leaders that we want to really utilize to help train the rest of the teachers.
And just to kind of follow up is that, like, a lot of what we saw tonight was like CTE or club. And so again, it goes back to what Mrs. Reese was saying, is that not every student is going to be exposed to those things by choices they make, whether they are more musically inclined. I have a daughter who is more artsy, so she's not into technology whatsoever. So I get that they have different, not just likes, but paths that they're headed towards. But at the end of the day, technology is changing every day, and I just want our students to be prepared as well. And I get everybody else's comments tonight as well, but I think it's important that we go back to the hard knocks of math, reading, and writing, and know what we're doing in those classes as well.
And President Rice, Mrs. Kaler, one of the most difficult things for our individual coaches in the different curriculum areas to do is to make sure they have to vet all those programs to make sure that they're appropriate, they're valid, and they're reliable. The last thing we want to do is have a teacher go out there and find some incredibly entertaining program out there that has no academic value. And that is one of the things that they have to do quite a bit, is they go out there and they find a program that's interesting but is not academically valuable.
And everything in the news today that Momo's like making her appearance on every technology platform she possibly can right now, teaching kids how to commit suicide. So we do have to be careful on what we expose our students to, absolutely. So yes, thank you for that.
And if I could follow up before I forget what I was going to say. Sorry. The Canvas, we made an intentional choice of getting Canvas. We got it at a really good price, letting teachers explore with it. And that was the goal. We're not trying to force you. We gave everyone training. Use it, see what you enjoy. Now, as we move along, it's been a couple years, we're going to have some more expectations for their use with it. But we thought it better to let the ones who really loved it step up and try it out and slowly move into it. The other thing, I was a college professor for 12 years, and I used 4 different LMSs. And I can guarantee you, we don't expect students are coming to us knowing how to use all those online programs. We do teach them how to do it first. Because, yes, a lot of them use Canvas, but a lot use others. And not everyone comes with that experience. So we do have a part that tells them, this is how you use our online part of our class.
And at the college nowadays, they have the Technology Resource Center that the teachers are all the time learning new technology. Technology boot camps are taking place every 6 months. So, I mean, Canvas is there. Okay?
It's there.
And Canvas is not an option for a teacher at college anymore. It's a must, and I want our students to be successful, because I'm at a college and I see what our students need to do, and I see what we're not doing. I guess, as you said in reference to Canvas, so if we want to make sure the teachers do Canvas, so who's going to train the teachers, and who's going to train them? I mean, that's.
Well, we
you know,
had
that
campus
seems to-
training. Everyone
Okay,
got
that was
training.
campus training maybe a year or two ago. I'm telling you, campus changes all the time. You should see the bells and whistles that I see at the college level in reference for our
I
faculty.
used Canvas for a lot of years. I know how
I'm
it
seeing-
changed.
I
The
mean, I'm
basic
seeing-
part's still
Dr.
there.
Mallory said that we have some going at the end of April.
Mr. Wojtovich, we are sending additional teachers to the MESA conference. We have trainer of trainers at the campus, which have been teachers, what you mentioned, teachers training teachers, and our new online coordinator, now that it's going to be a mandatory piece of our math and English curriculums, that new online coordinator will go out, will train our teachers. But it was, I mean, we felt like the plan was to go slow before we went fast, and we didn't want to shove everything down our teachers' throats with everything else they had to do while we were implementing 2 adoptions. I know we're tired of hearing about the adoptions, but now that those are in place, and now that we have the technology available in each classroom, now we can hold the teachers accountable to use it, and that's what we plan to do. But the one thing I was really concerned about is I want to make sure we get a qualified person. I know we could probably, I don't know, go across the field and hire somebody, but they have to apply, and we need to get the right person. And I'm really concerned about that. I've heard the board mention we want quality people, and I've heard you mention educational technology master's degree. We're looking for that type of person. We have a pool. We're going to be able to bring 10 people in and interview them that all have qualifications. We'll be able to put somebody in place to start the year, hopefully July 1. And since we did list it nationwide, we got quite a few more applicants. We have 59 applicants to screen in the morning.
I guess some of the things in reference to when we were talking with the elementary program, that we're looking at learning.com as our resource. So I guess my question is learning.com is the people we're going to develop our curriculum? I mean, are they the sole people? Because I guess I'm from the Midwest, and a lot in reference to our technologies in school was dealt with reference to the Horizon report. I don't know if maybe Mr. Glover is aware of that, and I think perhaps maybe that should be shared with the board member. The Horizon report comes out every year, and it talks about emerging technology for learning in schools. So I guess if we're not, and the report this year talks about makerspace and all these things that we should be doing in a 1-year plan, 2-year plan, 4-year plan for our schools. So I guess my question for anybody here, what are we looking for in reference to our plan for technology, be it elementary, or where are we going to, or are we just going on what learning.com tells us? I mean, who is our advocate in pulling things together for us for a plan?
Can we stew on that? I'm going to wrap back around to that answer, because as a history teacher, it's amazing to have 5 people watch something and come out with the same outcome. And I think we all saw the same things. I think obviously we have some philosophical differences, maybe not amongst us, but amongst our groups. And we've got I think we're missing an opportunity. So I'm going to try to wrap it back around. But I do want to say to all the media specialists, I was so happy to have you all back. Really, really, really happy to have you back. And I know this meeting is contentious, but we're really happy to have you back for the work that you do. And then you guys were asking about standards and stuff. So they're broad, and the teachers, like, if one of the standards is to teach a kid how to log in, that's your assessment. Can they log in or not? It doesn't have to be a complex essay or anything like that. So it's just, can they or can't they do X or Y or Z? And they're simple and become more complex. But I love in the back that K1, really, I was concerned with the technology and overwhelming kids with technology. I really think reading is more important than technology in K1, but that's me. And so I hope that you guys are deliberate and feel comfortable that you have time to read to kids and get them to learn to love to pick up books. I really hope that there is time and you're flexible to do that. And I wanted to I'm still getting I will eventually get to my point. But yeah, I'm getting them all in. So, but when in the video, we did see that K6 was technology stuff. And it was more specialized at the junior high and high school, and that's probably time in the video and stuff, but they were classes that these guys had that were robotics. And I think as we're getting more devices like streams at the junior highs and high schools, I hope we see more things that are integrated. So science and social studies are using MS Office. It doesn't have to be learning.com, but MS Office to create something or to solve a problem. And I think that's what we're looking for, and we're kind of looking, I think we need more of you, Ms. Thomas. I think we need more of you, and I think there was money set aside for it. And I personally, I'm less interested in online learning person, and I'm less interested in Masters of Ed technology. I think we have that person in Higley who can relate to teachers and can relate technology to teachers and make them comfortable to take risks and to know what we do and how we go about business. I think that's a better person, and I have talked to Dr. Thomason about this, and I've tried to think of ways that we could fund such things, and maybe with Mr. Kelly, he can, if you like the idea, Dr. Thomason, and you can share it with them, but a way that we could have more Valerie Thomases, because we need them. And I think it has been lacking at the secondary, and maybe it's miscommunication, misunderstanding, but they need somebody who just is comfortable to go in and excited to share technology and get kids to integrate and use them. And there are, no offense to our ELA and language arts curriculum, but it's like a website-ish kind of thing, and that's sort of a one-track. And I know they take you to websites, but I'm talking about creating knowledge and demonstrating knowledge and those sorts of things. So I think that's maybe that's what we're talking about, that kind of person or people that we could use more of. And you wouldn't disagree with me that we need more of you, would you? No? Okay. So I think that's maybe it's been unclear over the years, and I know it has. But I think that's what we're talking about here, right? Is more people like this, so that people will use the tools that they have. That's all. Thank you.
I just wanted to address Ms. Kaler. So if we could go back to, you had said something about the video piece and how there wasn't a classroom teacher in there. There were 2 classroom teachers in that video. There was one, Eric Rogers from Chaparral, and he was talking about how he uses Microsoft 365 and the technology piece when he delivers his social studies lessons.
Does he just teach social studies?
He teaches math as well.
He teaches math and social studies. Interesting. Okay,
And
sorry
then-
for not seeing that, but I was looking, I guess, for our.
She must have left.
I was thinking secondary more, I guess, because I had all the K
Oh,
through
okay.
6 here, and I did see the K6. Yes, I should have specified.
Oh,
Our
okay.
secondary math, science, English, and history, that is nowhere in here.
Okay.
That's what I guess I needed to specify. I'm sorry for not making that more clear.
We had another teacher here tonight that was back there with the demonstrations, and she was in the video as well. And she's a 3rd grade classroom teacher, and she uses it, and she had mentioned it in the video as well. I know you wanted to add something.
I just was listening to the conversation about ELA and math and so on and so forth, and I am the K-5 ELA district, or K-5-ish, 6 sometimes, ELA district coach. And I just wanted to say that a couple of things as far as talking about how are we spreading some of this stuff, great stuff that Valerie is doing with amongst coaches, which we work with all the different grade levels. She is also training us to be proficient using Canvas, we're actually working as a coach group to create PDs, so then we can teach our teachers how to use Canvas. So we're another outlet to get these programs out to teachers. And it's amazing. And I think that is going to be a really great way to roll it out too. When I'm out there doing PDs on ELA, not only am I going to do that, but then I'm going to spark the interest and be able to say, and if you need help on, this, I can show you, and then we can get you some backup if I don't know enough. Another thing I wanted to mention, I know you were talking more secondary, but as far as implementation of just using supplemental resources in the classroom electronically and using different the computer resources that come with our series, I know that when I go into classrooms and when I work with teachers or when they come to me with questions, there's never a conversation I have or a demo lesson that I do that I don't teach them at least 3 to 4 pieces of that, or reteach them 3 to 4 pieces of that HMH online component. I do believe that one of the reasons that you might see a little less usage at the secondary level is that the elementary level does have more pieces that you can use right there in the classroom. Just nature of, of how it works. And so another thing, since the last time I was here, I did want to say is that our usage has increased significantly we now have all the elementaries doing online standard-based assessments. It is amazing the transformation now. Now it's not a conversation of should we use these, it's how are we going to use these to make common formative assessments. Like it's not an if, it's a how are we going to do it and when are we going to do it. And once again, I think as we get used to using these programs, it's going to have a trickle-up effect because the kids are going to know more and more and more as we get our secondary teachers trained more on these different things. I think that you're going to see more usage. And I have seen, like I said, I used to just get questions about logins from classroom teachers, right? Now I can say weekly I get login questions from PE teachers who are helping with interventions, from, I'm trying to think, a variety of different non-certificated even positions who are wanting to see what the resources are because they know that there's a plethora of things that they can use that are interactive. And so, and the other thing I wanted to touch on was the research, starting all the way down in kindergarten. This year we cleaned up our writing curriculum. And I can tell you that every grade, starting at kindergarten, is learning research from the very basics, working their way up, and they are using basic technologies such as Word and PowerPoint. So many of our kids know how to use PowerPoint. They relish in telling them, they can use that, but at a very young level where it's appropriate. So just with our writing curriculum alone, they are being taught those research skills specifically. And when we revamped that curriculum, we made sure that they had very specific focuses so that that information was being presented from a very low grade level.
And the media specialists are also teaching that research component as well in the technology classes. It's not just how do we keyboard and how do you log onto a computer. It is those researching skills, and it is, the online resources, as you saw in the video. Christy gave a great example. So it's all flowing over into those classes, those specialist classes they
I would
get.
just like to say to you, I am so proud of what I saw tonight in that room and what you do, okay? And I just want that for all the children in this district. And if we can have 20 of you, whatever it takes. And I guess the thing this evening, like, what better way is for teachers to teach teachers, okay? And particularly at secondary, if perhaps, we can't find this person right now, like Mr. Glover just said earlier, then have the teachers come in. I mean, I see what's happening out there and the enthusiasm of the teachers. Why aren't we utilizing those teachers and paying them, okay, for choosing to be leaders in their schools with technology? Let's give them some money because I know we've been saving money for 2 years with the technology person. So, I mean, bless you for what you do, and I want whatever we can do to take you to the next level, okay?
And, well, I'm glad you brought that up because my goal, and it just takes some time, and you have to give me some time, I'm more one person, but my goal is to have somebody at every site who is an expert in whatever it might be, whether it's Canvas or it's 365 or it's just Skype only, or if it's, in Microsoft Teams or Google over at Power now. So that's my goal, but it does take some time to get that built up. And then, of course, we want those teachers to stay year after year because, once we train them, we don't want them to go. But that is a goal, and I'm working on it, and we're getting there.
Do we now have a lead teacher at each school for technology that the teachers can go to?
Right now, it's our media specialist, and then I've got a few teachers besides our media specialists at each school that would be kind of a go-to, but it's really not an overall go-to. I think the overall go-to would be our media specialist, but the other person that's there, they might be just the go-to person for something very specific.
Yeah, because I think in reference to a lead teacher at technology at each school and give them some financial incentive, that would be, to encourage them to do those type of things. I know the school system back when I was in Michigan, we had lead teachers at each one of our schools for technology, and they were paid extra money, and so the teachers in that school, because you can't be at every school, but the teachers had somebody at each school could help them in reference to those particular
I think
things.
all that takes money, right?
Yeah, it does, but we can be a little creative too, okay? And, that half glass, half full, we need to take a look at some things.
And I do want to say, as far as the ELA portion, we do have the literacy coaches who are very proficient with the online portions of that. So if it comes to particular problems with that, they can seek training from those individuals.
Perfect, thank you. And I love the idea, like I said, with you making this video on different things, and perhaps that's a short-term solution, is that if we have people who know how to integrate different things, from create short little training videos that our teachers can have access to at any time and say, hey, I want to learn more about 365. How can I really utilize that? I don't understand it. And that we have a collection that they can go and watch a training video, you know, and we have worked really hard at our technology in this boardroom. And what a perfect opportunity to have a professional development here that can be recorded, that can be played back at any time, that if a teacher was unable to make it, or someone else just wanted some additional professional development, that we have a collection of professional development videos that they can go and watch and learn more. And, you know, I think a perfect example is at Sossaman for our science there. They do different lessons. It's, you know, and it's videoed, and they watch it, and then they go into the class afterwards, and it's reinforced. And if we have professional development that's recorded, utilize what we have. We have these experts. We have people who do it all the time. Miss Krause at Williamsfield is amazing. She's got a ton of technology information as well as all kinds of things. And so if she's proficient, or any of our teachers are proficient in a certain area, let's look at utilizing that, seeing if they'll do a short training video so that anyone can have the opportunity. If we have a teacher who really integrates things or does something well, let's see if we can do this. And then our teachers can have the resources. I know we've been limited on high school PD. We have talked about that, and that's been a concern, and we're working on that. And we're able to relook that because we have more minutes now that we have. But maybe this is an opportunity to use our technology to help teach and give different professional development trainings when we're not able to provide it, that they have access to it at any time.
Thank you, Mrs. Reese. We will be looking at more professional development days at both the middle school and the high school as we move forward. And definitely we'll have some training opportunities that help teachers in all of the technology areas, especially in their professional development cohorts, that they can be specific for their language arts or mathematics, science, and those different areas.
I want to make sure everybody got theirs out. So I have some little points that I definitely want to bring up. Dr. Thomason and I met this week, and we're able to discuss some. Girls who code, I could see being a very big issue. We talked about it. I know he met with Ms. Good. Is she here? Oh, she left.
Mrs.
Okay.
Good has a long way to drive back,
Yes,
so
she
I let
does.
her go.
So I know we had talked about it, and I don't know if you want to share that piece that we had talked about, maybe?
One of the pieces for the Girls That Code is that if it is sponsored sole and separate outside the Higley Unified School District, that is something that can happen. But if it is paid for or sponsored by the district, then that would be an area that we would be not including all of the students, and so that would be a discriminatory practice if we just allowed young ladies to be part of that. If it is separate and sole outside the Higley Unified School District and paid for outside of those those areas, then that can happen. Anything that we pay for within our district or utilize our district funds for cannot include the discriminatory practices, and so we would change it to kids that code and
Yeah,
not
that was
girls
my
that code.
suggestion, to possibly change it to kids that code, so we weren't discriminating against some students that didn't feel included. Because I did notice that at some of our elementary campuses, there isn't a coding program. We do have some, but not all of them do. So I would like to see it. I know it is listed on here that says, girls that code, but if we could please change it to kids that code, so everybody feels included in that club, and that there's no question that I don't want to be discriminatory, and I don't think anybody on this board has ever seen that or wanted to feel that way. So I just want to make sure that's a very big point coming from our board, and I'm sure from cabinet as well. Let me see what other points I have. I noticed on the video that some of the kiddos were sharing computers. Are our labs not big enough to accommodate all, or were they just sharing for the video? Sorry, I don't mean to pinpoint, but I was just questioning that, if our labs are big enough to support those classrooms. So it is a one-on-one media time.
I believe the one you're referring to is during Darla Hargis's piece, where there's two students at a computer, and she actually was having them work on a project together. So
Okay,
it
perfect.
wasn't necessarily.
So our labs do accommodate
Yes,
the
they do.
classes.
Yes.
A backup question to that, since I do some media specialists out here. How often are those computers down, and for how long are they down? Are we able to get them back up and running? I see lots of people that could possibly answer this. Sorry. I think these are good, valid questions on.
Okay, I'm Trisha Wright, media specialist at Gateway Point, and I would say the biggest issue I have personally run into has been Wi-Fi. And so we've been instructed that when that happens, a couple troubleshooting issues of restarting the computer, making sure everything's good. I look at my little router button. If it's red, I know it's a bad day or a bad period. But kudos to our tech people on campus, because they try as diligently as possible to get to us as quickly as possible, because they know that obviously we're not successful as technology teachers if we don't have technology that is in working order 100% of the time. So IT tickets and their support obviously helps with that, but as we all know, technology is not perfect all the time, so we're good at improvising. And I do have computers in my media center that are on a landline, or I don't even know what the official. So I'm not using Wi-Fi. Yeah, there you go. Network. I should know that. So we'll utilize those, and then I also have a lab that is connected that I can use as a backup, if you will, when there's not a class in there. So there are issues that we run into, but I would say most of the time it is the Wi-Fi that I've seen personally.
How often do you have to change plan? And you could pass the buck if you want. How often do you guys have to change your plans because of that? You said sometimes it just goes down. You look at the router, it's red or whatever. Do you then have to change your, obviously, because we are telling you have this plan to do technology for 25 minutes or something.
Sure. So, it all really depends. If I'm planning a 365 lesson, for instance, and I want them on the streams perhaps, then the Wi-Fi's not working. Obviously, that 365 lesson isn't going to work. So we'll do a backup with maybe a learning.com resource or something else. But as a whole, I feel like most of what we're doing is with the Wi-Fi. So regardless of whether it was a 365 lesson or a learning.com lesson, it's still utilizing the technology. And obviously, if the wireless isn't working,
then you rely on backup books.
Backup books, or maybe it's grouping up, with a student, or perhaps, I see that these 2 rows of computers are on Wi-Fi. Let me troubleshoot, get in touch with my tech person. You guys are going to do checkout at the moment. So it's
Perfect.
Just.
So you guys have a backup plan. And
Sure.
I know that
we
this
have
is.
To. Every
we've
teacher
talked,
does.
I know that this is across the board. This has always been, it always will be an issue, I think.
Right.
Technology is technology.
Right.
We all know that our phones sometimes don't have Wi-Fi, even when we're in the best spot. So we understand that.
And I wanted you to also know that media specialists are priority to the techs that are
Great.
there. So
That's perfect.
So
That's a
they
great
can
answer.
contact them directly because they know that they're not going to be successful if something's not working. And the feedback I've gotten from the media specialists, they love their texts, by the way. And they say they're super fast, they're right there right away. And
That's great to hear.
to be honest, how
That's
often it
amazing.
happens, I don't know.
Of course.
But I know that they're
That's actually
super
great
fast
news
and they're
to
always
hear.
thankful for them.
That's a great backup to our presentation that we heard, was it a month ago, or? That was great backup. Thank you.
President Reese, a number of board members had a variety of different questions that were brought up this evening. I don't know what your plans are. We have a follow-up meeting in reference to a presentation by the secondary curriculum technology. I know Mr. Glover had some questions as well as so what are your plans in reference to this? So what would you like to do?
It's not my plan. What would the board like?
I would like a follow-up board meeting in reference to some of the discussion, because if something's written, we cannot have a discussion if it's sent to us in the mail. So to have a discussion at a work study session, I would prefer that.
Is that what the board would like, is additional?
I would like a secondary, but I know it takes time. Mrs. Thomas did a whole video, and I'm sure she took many, many, many hours. So I would like something on secondary education, and I don't know how, or the secondary education piece. That would be very helpful.
How technology's
Yeah,
used
how
within the
it work,
secondary.
especially maybe some follow-up to your question, if there's an ELA program that hasn't used a cow all year, that's concerning.
So President Reese, just to clarify, I'm hearing that we would like to see a follow-up for secondary technology use in the core classrooms.
Is that what? Sounds like that is the consensus of the board, what they would like to see.
Sure, and perhaps if they could share with us the plan in reference to secondary, what's taking place for technology.
Okay, any other questions or comments regarding the curriculum update? Thank you for spending your time and your evening with us, and like it was said, this is the only chance we have to talk about these things. So while it may seem, because we're asking questions, I want you to know that this board is very supportive of our media specialists. We want to make sure you have the resources. We want to make sure that we're supporting you. And so please, by any of our questions, don't take that personally. Don't take it as that we don't support you and what you're doing, because that, I can speak for every single one of them, that you guys are valued and we do support you. We want to know that you're getting what you need. We want to know if you're not, how we can within our limitations. We don't have money trees planted, not yet. I think trying to work on that, but within our abilities, and to be creative and to think outside the boxes, and you guys live it. And if you guys have ideas, please bring them forward, because I don't know what your day looks like. I don't know every day and consistent, and sometimes you'll have an idea like, boy, it would just be easier if we just did this. Please share that, because you guys are the experts, and we can always look at that. And you have a great administrative team who wants to support different ideas. And I think bottom line, like Dr. Thomason says, whether we all agree or disagree, we all want what's best for our kids. We all want to prepare them in the best way we can for their future. And we know technology moves faster than we do, especially in education. Technology is really fast, education's extremely slow. So when you're trying to combine the two, it's really difficult. So But I wanted to say, just because we're asking some questions, it's not necessarily pointed at anyone, any particular program. We want to support you, and we're trying to understand. And sometimes we play devil's advocate so we can figure out the other side. So
President
I
Reese?
just want to make sure everyone understands we do fully support you.
I do want to thank you for the general reminder to our community and to our public and our teachers that the board cannot talk to each other outside of the dais that you're on right now. And so if it seems like that they're disconnected, it's definitely not a disconnection. It is an Arizona revised statute open meeting law violation if they do talk to each other. So thank you for that general reminder.
Yes.
And I think we are asking questions because we really do care. And I think every single one of us are super passionate about making sure that you guys are well taken care of. Thank you.
Perfect. If we don't have anything else, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Have a good evening.